that there are significant savings that will come from this. That is why moderate members of the House, I think they would tell you, and many of them have spoken to this, including Congressman Kurt Schrader, who is one of the moderates who's on the borderline given deficit impacts, have said is they felt comfortable with it because of the expertise out there about the impact of IRS enforcement.
When the last administration tried to say that the CBO was incorrect, you tweeted, watching Mulvaney try to walk away from his CBO score and explain the budget outline is awkward and uncomfortable to watch. So what is the difference between the Trump administration saying don't listen to the CBO and the Biden administration saying don't listen to the CBO?
Actually, we've praised the overall work of the CBO on the Build Back Better Act repeatedly, and that's what we believe. But again, I would point to the fact that there isn't a great deal of history or experience in scoring IRS enforcement. That's something that economists across the board have noted. That's something that leaders on the Hill, Democrats and Republicans, have been briefed on for several months now, and that's why it wasn't really a surprise to them and why the vote in part moved forward. Go ahead, Kristen.
Jen, thank you. Can you explain the timing of the physical today? What was behind it? Did the fact that the president is turning 79 years old tomorrow have anything to do with the timing? Did he want to have that before his birthday?
The president is well aware that his birthday is a matter of public record. As the president of the United States, I can confirm that. I will say, Kristen, we knew that we were going to do, he wanted to do and committed to do a physical before the end of the year. So this is obviously meets that timeline. And obviously we work through scheduling availability and requirements in order to do that, because any president is typically at Walter Reed for a couple of hours.
Not to harp on this point, but you know, I think there was an expectation there would be a press conference tomorrow. He obviously had a very
Tomorrow?
Sorry, yesterday.
Oh.
He obviously it's a late night for all of us here. In
Yeah, it's okay.
He obviously had a very full day yesterday. Was there any last minuteness to the decision of his going in today?
I'm sorry, I don't really
For the
understand your
physical.
question. To do it or not?
To do the physical.
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question. Did we schedule it
Was
yesterday?
this planned in days in advance?
We had planned to do the physical, yes. But I would, right, but what's the root of your question, just to make sure I answer it?
When was it planned? When did he first schedule the physical? Just because he had such a full day yesterday.
Sure.
And he had a colonoscopy today.
That is the nature of being president, and as I would note in the poll report, and this may be why you're asking, the meetings yesterday didn't end until after 8 o'clock last night. Obviously, the president was closely watching the vote last night, as we all were, maybe not through the totality of the 8.5-hour missives, but he was watching closely last night as well.
Is there any discussion about having a doctor brief us, given that he is the oldest sitting commander-in-chief?
We will be releasing a comprehensive summary, written summary, that will have details from the doctor and other experts who were consulted, medical experts who were consulted, that you'll receive later today. So that, I think, is what our intention is.
I just want to ask you on a different topic, broadly speaking. The country is sort of waiting for, anticipating a jury verdict in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. What is the president's direct message to people who want to protest, express their opinions after the verdict, and might we hear from the president after there is a verdict?
Well, I just want to preface, I'm not going to prejudge a verdict on an ongoing deliberation over a case. And clearly, once it's concluded, I'm sure there will be something we have to say from the White House. And we have been in close touch with the officials on the ground through law enforcement channels to ensure we are supporting any effort toward peaceful protest. That's certainly what we will continue to encourage as anyone looks to have their voice heard, regardless of the outcome. Go ahead.
There was one conspicuous thing missing from the week ahead that Bloomberg is particularly interested in, which is the Fed chair.
What's
of course.
the president's favorite Thanksgiving meal? No. Okay.
Yeah. Is it accurate to say that it'll happen on Monday or Tuesday, since that's the time that the president's going to be in?
The president intends to make a decision, and I expect we'll have more to share in advance of his departure. So by process of elimination, expect there'll be more to report early next week.
Okay. Government funding runs out December 3rd. I'm wondering if the White House right now is looking for a CR to get, towards New Year's, or if you'd like a longer government funding.
It's a great question. Given the pure volume of legislative work this week, I have not had a conversation with the legislative team about this. Obviously, we would typically work closely with leadership on determining what that might look like. Let me see if there's more we can report on that to you.
And then yesterday you got a bunch of questions about the EV tax credit and Build Back Better. The Canadians are obviously upset about it. It would make sense that because Senator Manchin has said that he doesn't support it, that the president's message to the prime minister is that it's probably going to drop out of the final version of the bill. Is that sort of an accurate representation of what their conversation was, or how would you characterize what his message for the Canadians was yesterday?
I think his message was exactly what I conveyed publicly, which is that there's a long history of using tax credits here to incentivize choices. That's true. They'll lower the cost here of electric vehicles by $12,500 for a middle-class family. That's something we want to incentivize in the United States, and we feel it's an industry that will help move towards a more clean energy future, something that will help address the climate crisis that we share an interest with the Canadians. Certainly, as the Canadian leaders read out, this was an issue they raised. I'll leave that to them to characterize further, and the president said, of course, we're happy to continue having a conversation. However, this is something the president is deeply committed to because he believes good paying union jobs that will help us move toward a clean energy industry, help us support clean energy industries is in our economic and national security and national interests.
Sorry, one last one to just on the conversation I had with Peter. The CBO estimated that the tax enforcement would bring in a little over $200 billion. You guys are obviously saying $400 billion. I'm wondering if you can, I don't think they're just throwing darts. I also take the point that you guys think that they're not experienced at sort of figuring out how much this enforcement will bring in. But twice as much is a big discrepancy. And so I'm wondering why you disagreed so dramatically with the CBO on that.
Well, I wouldn't characterize it exactly in those terms. I would again point to, and just another person I haven't introduced here, but Doug Elmendorf, who you all are familiar with, who directed the CBO from 2009 to 2015, said estimating the returns on additional IRS enforcement was challenging because large funding infusions to the agency had little precedent, and it was difficult to quantify the indirect effects of more auditors. So I would note that we also technically, I guess, have disagreements with economic experts who are projecting it would have even larger savings. I mean, not bad disagreements, but our projections are not exactly the same as Larry Summers, who said that the proposal could result in almost $800 billion in revenue, and has a Washington Post op-ed about it where he talks about that, and others who have projected it would have even larger savings. So I think it's just an indication of the difficulty, but what we're pointing to and what we think is an important indication for the American people and for many members of Congress who are concerned, as the president is, about deficit reduction, and this bill will save money in the deficit over the course of 10 years, is that this is something where it will have that impact. It has a larger impact that even we are projecting. And that's what we felt was important to point to. Go ahead.
In an effort to flesh out the historical record of the day, is there anything you can tell us about the 85 minutes that Kamala Harris served as acting president?
I will leave that to the vice president and her team to characterize. I would note that, and you didn't ask me exactly this, but I know other people have been talking about this, and as a woman myself, I will note that, the president, when he selected her to be his running mate, obviously he knew he was making history that was long overdue in our view, and part of that was selecting someone who could serve by your side as your partner, but also step in if there was a reason to, and that includes the application of the 25th Amendment, as was done this morning. He also, of course, we also know we make history every time they're working together, every time she's out there speaking on behalf of the government as the Vice President of the United States. But certainly today was another chapter in that history, I think, that will be noted for many women, young girls across the country.
You have disclosed that the president received a colonoscopy today. Are you in a position right now to talk about any other procedures or tests he might be undergoing as we speak?
We will disclose all of that, but I'm going to leave it to the medical experts to do that, and they will do that later this afternoon in a written summary. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. In his statement yesterday when he talked about the U.S. purchasing COVID-19 pill, the president mentioned that he wanted to make that pill free for the public. Can you lay out just sort of how that would work, ensuring that pill might be free?
Well, as you know, vaccines around the country are largely free, so there is a precedent for that, across the country, and something he wants to ensure it's available and accessible to people to protect them from COVID. And I think this falls into our expansive effort to fight the pandemic, get it under control, and get on the other side of it. So in terms of how it would work, like with contracts or...
Yeah, does it require negotiations with insurance companies or pharmacies?
It's a great question. Let me talk to our COVID team and see what else it would require.
On Ethiopia, the situation there seems to continue to be deteriorating. What advice does the White House have for Americans that are still in the country, especially given that the FAA sort of warned there could be inadvertent risks to commercial flights in the area?
Well, as things have deteriorated there, we have taken strong measures to encourage Americans to leave Ethiopia as soon as possible. Well, they can do so safely via commercial travel, which is still ongoing, because things can change in an instant and flight options could disappear. And the State Department goes to great lengths. U.S. citizens in crisis. We want to ensure Americans who may be in Ethiopia should not expect the United States will be able to facilitate a military evacuation in a dangerous environment. There are no plans, and people should understand this who are on the ground, to fly the U.S. military into Ethiopia to facilitate evacuation. So the State Department is using every measure they have to communicate directly and broadly with Americans there about the fact that it is time to depart.
And just really quick, you were asked yesterday about the Chinese tennis star Peng Shuai, and you didn't have anything to say then. I wonder if you have any sort of update from the White House and whether the U.S. or the President is following that.
Yeah. We are deeply concerned by reports that Peng Shuai appears to be missing after accusing a former PRC senior official of sexual assault. We join in the calls for PRC authorities to provide independent and verifiable proof of her whereabouts and that she is safe. I can't speak, of course, I know you're not asking this, but to the details of the case or any more details of where she might be, obviously. But I want to be clear where the United States stands, generally speaking. First, any report of sexual assault should be investigated, and we support a woman's ability to speak out and seek accountability, whether here or around the world. Second, we'll continue to stand up for the freedom of speech, and we know the PRC has zero tolerance for criticism and a record of silencing those that speak out, and we continue to condemn those practices. Go ahead.
Can I go back to some news from yesterday?
Sure.
You were asked about this idea of a diplomatic boycott. I'm wondering if you can offer any additional details or define for us what a diplomatic boycott means.
I just don't have any more updates from here today, and it's just an indication that there hasn't been a final decision.
Okay. And then also at the outset, you mentioned today that the infrastructure czar and 7 cabinet secretaries were meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Can you provide any additional details about what they were discussing, sort of what their priorities are, any additional info on that meeting?
Well, I can tell you that going back to last Friday when the cabinet, when the president had a meeting with his cabinet, the focus of that was on infrastructure implementation. And he basically went around to each cabinet member who had purview or were just going to oversee a key part of the implementation to get an update from them on what their approach would be. Some departments, as you know, will be creating entirely new programs. Some will have a level of funding, including the Department of Transportation. Some will have a level of funding like the Department of Commerce they've never had for some of these programs before. So it was different project to project. So what I would anticipate is that that our implementation coordinator will receive an update on the work that is happening by each of these members, and that these will be regular meetings that will continue to ensure that there is implementation that is effective and efficient, and that we are reducing waste, fraud, and abuse.
Okay. Can I ask you one quick question? Sorry, last one on the turkeys, if you don't mind.
Those turkeys. Yes.
Can you confirm where they are going after they will be carted? I had heard Purdue University.
Oh, wow. There's a lot. This is an important question. We will get you that after the briefing. I can confirm that part of it is staying in a hotel, which my daughter did not believe me, but that is accurate. They stay in advance, the turkeys do, in a hotel, but we will get you the details. I think there have been details put out by the, I'm not sure if it's the Turkey Bureau, but we will get you all of the details after the briefing.
Are any humans going to be pardoned by President Biden? There are people who are serving life in prison for marijuana who want him to honor his commitment to release everyone in prison for pot. Are people going to get pardoned as well by President Biden?
I will just reiterate that the president is, of course, I have nothing new to update you on, but the president is, of course, will look to the use of his clemency powers. He's talked about his approach or his view on nonviolent drug offenders, but I don't have anything to update you on that today. Go ahead.
Jen, in the wake of the president's physical and on the topic of his health, a new Politico Morning Consult poll found that 50% of voters surveyed do not agree with the statement that President Biden is in good health and that voters are almost evenly split on the question of if he's in good mental health. I understand that the president disagrees with this assessment, the White House disagrees with this assessment, but I'm curious, where do you think these voters' concerns are coming from?
I can't speak to the assessments of voters. There are certainly quite a bit of conspiracy theory pushing out there on a range of social media platforms and even through the mouths of elected officials. So that could certainly be a root cause, as you know. But I would say that we are not only following past precedent of what has been done. If you look back, and I know this was noted in the statement we put out this morning, of the times where there was a transfer of power under the Bush administration, we're looking at past precedent there and making sure we're following that, but also going beyond in many cases. And the comprehensive summary that we put out this afternoon will have certainly an overview of the president's routine physical and their assessments, and that is something we will make widely available.
More on Build Back Better. How confident is the president that he will be able to keep all 50 senators on board with minimal changes? And on the topic of changes, is there, I know you wouldn't sort of engage on paid family leave, but is there any red line for him of something that absolutely has to stay in the bill?
Well, the president would have loved to have seen his entire original proposal passed, but he also knows from having served 36 years in the Senate, that's not how it goes. He's somebody who governs from the position of compromise, not being a dirty word. He sees consensus as the way you get things done, and that's certainly how we're going to approach the next few weeks as well. So his bottom lines have not changed. He wants to lower costs for the American people, give them more breathing room, ease the burden on of areas like childcare, elder care, health care. Those are all components that are solidly in this package, and he won't raise taxes on people making less than $400,000 a year. So those are his continued bottom lines.
Following up on Build Back Better, Jen, Catholic
Kyle
Bishop
Rittenhouse
here.
has been declared not guilty by a jury on one count of first-degree reckless homicide. On the second count, first-degree reckless endangerment, he's also been found not guilty. What is the White House's response to that?
Not guilty on all counts.
All counts.
I obviously this happened while I was out here, so let me talk to the president, talk to our team, and we will get you a statement as soon as we can.
Does the president thank the judge in the Rittenhouse trial, saying that the victims in Kenosha should not be referred to as victims, but rather looters or protesters is appropriate?
Again, I'm not going to give an assessment of this from here. Let us get you a statement as soon as we can.
Last question on the physical. Will you be offering a full list of the people who treated the president and their assorted specialties?
We will be referencing additional medical experts who the president spoke with, but I don't think, I'm not going to prejudge what the final comprehensive summary will look like.
Build Back Better, Jen. Catholic bishops fear faith-based preschools could be excluded from receiving Build Back Better money because
I don't think you need to talk over. She's just asking a question. Go ahead.
Is the administration considering changing the definition of what it means to be fully vaccinated? And is there any concern at a state level that there could be some confusion about what it means to be fully vaccinated, given that some governors have started to change that definition?
Well, some governors I know have offered booster shots in advance of, or have expanded that, right? I'm not sure if they've changed the definition, which is typically done by the CDC. We follow CDC guidance. CDC guidance continues to be 2 mRNA shots and 1 Johnson & Johnson. We don't prejudge, and I can't preview for you if they're going to change that at any point in time, but that's what we will continue to follow, and that's what we would advise others to follow around the country.
Okay, Jen, Build Back Better, Catholic bishops.
Okay,
here we
thank
go.
you. I'm moving on over here. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll go next, please. Thank you.
Do you have any reaction to the report that the U.S. is considering deporting a group of Afghans who did not meet vetting requirements back to Afghanistan?
I would have to look into the specific details, but I would note that our thorough vetting processes are in place for a reason, and we follow those to the letter of the law and ensure that we are not only welcoming people who served by our side for many years during a challenging, long war, but also that we are making sure the American people know they're safe. But I'd have to look into these specific examples.
Russia, if I may. According to Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, some certain preparations are underway for the virtual meeting between President Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Can you confirm that?
I don't have any meeting to preview or call to preview for you at this point in time. If something like that is confirmed or finalized, we're happy to share that information. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Ahead of Thanksgiving, I wanted to ask you about hunger.